Hey everybody, it's Emily at Arc Schooling, and it is time for my most exciting video of the year. We're going to talk about my favorite books that I read in 2023. Normally, I can usually figure out my top 10 pretty easily. This year, I had too many great books. So we have a top 15 plus a few honorable mentions because I don't know how to narrow it down any more than I have. So let's just go ahead and talk about all the things that I read. I have a big stack next to me that we're gonna just work our way through. And I'm gonna go in order from like the honorable mentions all the way up to my favorite book of the year. So let's just do it. Let's start with the honorable mentions. I wanna talk about The Summer of Lost Letters by Hannah Reynolds. This honestly gets a spot here because it is so out of my normal reading. I didn't realize picking this up that it was going to be a romance. I should have figured that out, but I didn't. I thought I was going to be reading a story about a girl like researching her grandmother's past, and I did get that. But it's also a romance. And I think the fact that it had a plot that was not just the romance is what made this work for me as a romance book. So, look at me reading a romance novel in 2023, something I swore I would never enjoy a romance, and I did. And this is a story about, like I said, a girl researching her grandmother's past. She knows that her grandmother was able to escape Europe during World War II when she was very young, and nobody really knows anything about her family or her past because she was too young to know. And there's very little records of what happened to her family and that sort of. Our main character, Abby, has found some letters after her death, and she wants to know more about these mysterious letters and who was her grandmother writing to and why had she never mentioned any of these people before. So it takes her to Cape Cod, and she just digs up this whole past about her grandmother's life that none of them had ever known. So I don't know, I love that kind of thing. I love learning about people finding out information about their family that they didn't know through letters and that sort of thing. That's already a plot device that I will always just really enjoy. So adding that into the story set in summer on Cape Cod, it's got lots of vacation-y summertime vibes. There's a really cute romance. It's just a really fun time. Taking a completely different turn, I read All My Rage by Sabaa Tahir, and this was beautifully written, but absolutely devastatingly sad. This is a very depressing book, but it's so good. This is a story following two different perspectives. We're following, I don't remember anybody's names. We're following Sal, we're following Noor, and we're following Sal's mother and her past. And everybody gets their own chapters and perspectives. So you're getting the story from three different point of views. Following a boy's grieving his mother, whose father is an alcoholic, and he's just very angry at his father. And Noor is his best friend / maybe more than a best friend, and she's very close with his mother. And so everybody in this story is grieving. Everybody in this story is dealing with a lot of things. And yeah, this book has a lot of really hard subject matter, and it's very well done. It's very tragic and sad. And yeah, but it's worth the read, I think. It's beautifully written. And then my last honorable mention is Gold Mountain by Betty G. Yee. I just had a really good time reading this. This is a story about a girl who needs to help her father get out of jail in China. And the best way for her to do that is to dress up as a boy and use the ticket her brother would have used to go to America and work on the Transcontinental Railroad. Her brother has recently died, so he can't go, and so she's gonna just pretend to be him and work on the railroad, and she has no idea what she's getting into. And I will always love a story about a girl dressing up as a boy, trying to blend in and hide, and doing all these things that like is not allowed. So like that alone was a great like story device, but also like the writing is really good. I loved getting the view of like the dueling railroad companies and like all of the intrigue going on and who's a spy and who's not a spy and like who can you trust, and I just ate this up. It was so good. So much fun. Now let's get into my top 15. Number 15, this one was a total like out of nowhere upset. I had to like redo my whole list, and that was Most Ardently, a Pride and Prejudice remix by Gabe Cole Novoa. This doesn't even come out this year. This comes out in 2024. It's a 2024 release. It's out in January. I was reading the ARC, and this book just absolutely sucked me completely in, took me by surprise. I could not stop reading it. And I want to live in it. I've talked about how much I love this remix series where they take a classic and like reinvent it with people of color, LGBTQ plus history, like things like that. And this is Pride and Prejudice, but if Elizabeth Bennet was a trans boy named Oliver and Darcy is a gay man. And so like it's still the story. I don't even know how to explain how much I loved this book. It took one of my favorite stories, Pride and Prejudice, and it like reinvented it in a way that like I think enhances the story. You still hit the same like major beats. You still have like the ball at Netherfield. You still have Darcy like uninterested in Elizabeth Bennet. Like you still have all of their banter. And but there's also this whole story where you're following Oliver trying to deal with this reality that like he needs to be who he is but can't quite manage to figure out how to tell his family. Jane knows, and a few other family members know, like the aunt and uncle, and a few of his friends know, but like how do you explain this to Mrs. Bennet, who is obsessed with marrying off all these daughters? So like all of that, oh my gosh, it was so good, so well done, so heartwarming. I absolutely loved it. This book made me so happy, so highly recommend pre-ordering it, checking it out. It's out, I think, January 16th. Number 14 is Take My Hand. This is by Dolan Perkins Valdez. This was a book we read back, I think, in February with the ARG Book Club, and I thought it was one of our best like discussions we had. This is a story set in the 1970s. We're following our main character, Sybil Townsend, who is just out of nursing school and wants to do big things, wants to help people, and she gets sent to, I think, Montgomery, Alabama, and her first patients are these young girls who she's got to give birth control to, and she doesn't understand why. And it sends her on this whole quest to like find out why we're doing this. Why is this necessary? How is this actually helping? And it was so good and somewhat messy. Like, I think Sybil is an interesting character to follow because like she's trying to do her best by these girls, but she's also over-involving herself in their lives. It's hard not to do that. It's hard not to want to do everything you can for these people, even though that's not your job and it's not your place. So I found this story really, really interesting, and I found myself like unable to put it down. Like, it was really good. Highly recommend it. Number 13 is Legendborn. This is by Tracy Dion. I still need to read the next book in this series. I haven't gotten to it yet. I read this for the level 9 update, I believe. And I really didn't know how much I was going to enjoy this going in. Like, I knew it was fantasy, and I was hoping it wasn't going to be like too hard to follow the world building, but this is like the exact kind of fantasy that I enjoy, because yes, there's some world building, there's some stuff you gotta learn, but the way the story is written, it's easier to follow because you're learning right along with the main character. So this is a story following Bree and she's going to this summer program at, is it UNC? Yeah, UNC Chapel Hill, and she finds out she's part of this underground secret society. She doesn't realize that she has this ability and this power. Like, she knows that there's something different about her, that she has this magical ability, but she doesn't really understand it because her mother had tried to hide it from her to protect her. So she's sort of finding out all this stuff, not only about herself, but about her mother, who has died. And so, like, she's uncovering all of this stuff about her past and her abilities, while also dealing with, like, this underground secret society of, like, King Arthur legend magic. This was really well done. Definitely recommend if you are, like, one of those people like me who struggles a little bit with fantasy and world building. This one is definitely worth the read. Number 12 is SelfMade Boys, a Gatsby remix, and that's by Anna Marie McLemore. This is the first book I think I've read by them, even though I know my daughter Sarah has read other books that they've written and has enjoyed them. This is my first one, and I picked it up because it is a Gatsby retelling, and you know, last year one of my favorite books was a Gatsby retelling, so I really wanted to read this one. They had it at the library, so I borrowed it, and it was really, really well done. This is, again, it's the remix series, so now we're following the same characters, but I think Nick Carraway is gay, Gatsby is a trans man, and so it's still, again, following the same major beats of the story, but with the twist of, like, all these characters, and their relationships are a little bit different, but it was so good. Again, like, I really love getting the LGBTQ plus history, because I think that's something that really enhanced the story, gave it a lot more depth for that, and yeah, I just really enjoyed the way the author took a story that I already knew really well and just gave it enough of a change and an enhancement to make it something new and fresh. I swear, this remix series is going to take over my TBR next year, because I have so many that I've added to my TBR. I really want to read the Little Women remix, So Many Beginnings. I really want to read the Wuthering Heights one. I can't remember the name of that one. Romeo and Juliet one that I really needed to get to. So yeah, I just really want to read all the books in this series. I just can't wait to see what other ones they come out with. Number 11 is The Last Quintina. This is by Donna Barba Higuera. This is technically billed as middle grade, but I think this really fits more as a YA book. I included this in level 9 as well. And, oh, this was beautiful. This is a sci-fi story. We're following a family who is leaving Earth. They were chosen to go on this trip to space where they're going to basically be put to sleep in a spacecraft, and they're going to sleep for a couple hundred years. When they wake up, they will be on a new planet. And that's the plan. While they're sleeping, they're getting this, like, information inputted into their brains so that when they wake up, they'll be ready to do a job or help out in some way. Our main character, Petra, is wanting to be a storyteller. Her grandmother, that they have to leave behind on Earth, tells stories, and she's grown up listening to these stories, so she really wants that to be her task. So they give her all the stories. She has every story that they can fit, like, from this huge library into her mind. But something goes wrong, and when she wakes up, everything has changed. And I don't want to go into more detail than that, because I feel like this is a story you kind of just gotta go for the ride. But this book was really thought-provoking. A lot to say about the importance of stories and why we need that. I don't know. I thought this was really, really well done. But This was really good, really thought-provoking. I can't wait to read this with my youngest because I feel like it's going to lead to some really great discussion. Number 10 was Slayers, a Buffyverse story. This was written by Amber Benson and Christopher Golden, but it's not a physical book. It's only available as an audiobook, and oh my gosh, was this so much fun. This is a really cool way to bring back Buffy the Vampire Slayer without having to like worry about aging, because obviously like characters like Spike are gonna be troublesome because James Marsters is getting a little older and he no longer looks like he did in the 90s, but his voice is the same. So this is a story where we're following a lot of the returning cast. So we've got Cordelia, we've got Giles, we've got Spike, we've got Clem, Drusilla, Tara, Anya, like everybody's back just about. There's a whole thing with Buffy the Vampire Slayer where there's like all these alternate parallel worlds. So we're like universe jumping in this because it's not our universe Anya. It's a different universe Anya because obviously our Anya is no longer with us. And same goes for like most of these characters. And in that universe, Cordelia was the one called to be the Slayer. So we get Cordelia some redemption, which made me so happy because I will forever be angry at what happened to her character on Angel. Like it makes me very cranky what they did to her. It was very unfair. So I loved that Cordelia got a new story, and I just thought that was great. I loved this. I had so much fun listening to this. I could listen to James Marsters talk for hours. So I just thoroughly enjoyed my time back in the Buffyverse. I hope that there will be more. They do leave us with a cliffhanger. And a potential Willow coming back. Like, I really need that. I need that to happen. Can we please? I want everyone back. Can we have everybody back? Number 9 was Parable of the Sower. This is by Octavia E. Butler. And this book really just broke my brain a little. Like, it was a really interesting read. But the fact that this is an apocalypse set in, like, the start of this book is 2024, I think. And I just went, no. That's too soon. But knowing that this was written in like the 80s or the 90s or something like that, excuse me, but is Octavia Butler a prophetess? Like, how does she know the things that she knew? Like, this is an apocalypse story, but it's like the apocalypse has already happened. We're following our main character, Lauren Olamina, who is very young at the beginning. I think she's a young teenager, and we're following her over the course of like several years, and she lives in this compound with her family. Her father is a preacher, and she's fairly well protected there, but they can't leave. It's too dangerous to go out. And she starts developing these ideas and this philosophy for this new religion, and that's kind of what the meat of the story is about, is her beginnings of this religion and the beginnings of like gathering a congregation of people and explaining it all to them. And like every chapter begins with a poem that she's written. So like, Earthseed cast on new ground must first perceive that it knows nothing. And that's like what her religion is. It's Earthseed. In order to rise from its own ashes, a phoenix first must burn. We are Earthseed. We are flesh, self-aware, questing, problem-solving flesh. We are that aspect of Earth life best able to shape God knowingly. We are Earth life maturing, Earth life preparing to fall away from the parent world. We are Earth life preparing to take root in new ground. Earth life fulfilling its purpose, its promise, its destiny. This was just really disturbing and really beautiful and really thought-provoking. And as disturbing as it was, I do want to continue. I almost picked up the second book. I don't remember what it was called at the bookstore, but I read the back of the book and immediately put it down. I'm like, not yet. So I had said something about like a president wanting to make America great again, and I just went, hold on. What? I don't think I'm ready to go there just yet, but I do want to eventually get there. But man, this was really good. I really kind of want to read it again sometime, and I dig a little deeper. Maybe do an annotated book, because like there's so much in here that I want to like dig deeper into. Number 8 is Looking for Jane by Heather Marshall. I've talked about this already in my favorite new releases of 2023, but I had to add it here because this book was really, really well done. We're following 3 different perspectives, and we're learning about the Jane Network, which was like the way you were able to get an abortion and reproductive health before Roe versus Wade. And so like you're following one character who was a teen that was pregnant, I think in like either the 50s or the 60s. We're following another character who's trying to get an abortion in, I want to say, the 80s. And then we're following a character who is in the like 2018, I think, who is researching this letter she found and trying to find out more about what happened here. And like these 3 perspectives were all like interconnected, and it was so good. And I think a really important book, especially relevant right now because of everything happening in the world. And I just thought this was really good, and all of the perspectives were really, really good. Like it's rare for me to find a book that has multiple perspectives where I enjoy every single perspective equally. Like that doesn't generally happen. And I really enjoyed all of the perspectives in this book. They were all really rich and well done. And I thought the character growth was really great. I thought the reveals were really interesting. And I just really enjoyed this. Highly recommend it. Number 7 is Just Like Home by Sarah Gailey. I didn't expect to end up with this book on my list, but when I was looking over my favorites of the year, I was like, wow, no, I really want to include that. It was a really memorable book, I think. I read this when I did my haunted house video, if you want to go back and watch that. But this was a recommendation from Sadie Hartman, and I knew going in that this was one of those books that people either loved it or they hated it. And I was really hoping to not hate it. And I don't know, whatever people didn't like about it is the exact thing that works for me. Like, this book was so good. This is a haunted house story, but like with a twist. We're following a character, I can't remember her name, and she grows up in this house, and we're following her as an adult, and she has to come home because her mother is dying and her mother needs her. Her mother has called for her to come back. And so she comes home to the house her father built. We start like finding out what's going on with this house, why her father built it, what was going on with her father and her relationship with her father. And I can't really tell you more than that because this is one of those books that I kind of think it's better to not know much. And like the reveals, the plot twists, I loved it. I ate it up. I could not put it down. And the thing that people hated just absolutely worked perfectly for me. I thought this was great. It's very unique, I think, among haunted house books. Number 6 is Babel by R.F. Kuang, and I loved this. This has me wanting to just spend my whole 2024 binging dark academia, which is not a thing that I've read much of. So, yeah, this was so good, though. This is a story about colonization. This is a story about revolution, and we're following this group of characters who are brought to this school as translators, but like it's about this magic system with silver. The magic system is relatively interesting, but also not super important to the plot of the story, which is why it worked for me. I didn't need to think about it too deeply. I found the idea of it interesting, but like it doesn't require me to like dig too deeply into the lore of this world. There's magic. And it works through silver and language. And they need people who have the ability to speak a language natively, but also have the ability to speak other languages well. Because to do the magic, they need to have like this keen ability with language. And if they remember their mother tongue, it works even better. So we're following these characters from other places in the world who have been brought here. All of the characters are really well done. I loved their relationships with each other. I just thought this book was beautiful. Like, I knew going in that it's probably going to be sad, and it was, but it was also really thought-provoking and really interesting. And I just thought, like, I want to read it again sometime. I want to again annotate it because I didn't do that the first time. This might even go in level 11 because I have like a lot of thoughts about like digging deeper, and I think it would fit really well in level 11 with modern history. But yeah, this book was really great, and I want to read more dark academia because apparently that is a thing I love. Number 5 is Margot by Gillian Cantor. I've been wanting to read more by this author. She wrote one of my favorite books I read last year, Beautiful Little Fools, and so I keep saying I'm going to read more, so I finally did. And I've had this book on my shelves for absolutely forever. I think I bought this back in like 2015, 2016, so I finally read it. This is an alternate history, which is basically what if Margot Frank survived and made it to America. I know that there's a little bit of controversy surrounding this book because people don't like the idea of a real person being written about in this manner. But honestly, that didn't really bother me. I thought this was really well done and very thought-provoking and very beautiful. This is a story where we're following Margot, who is trying to hide who she is. She's blending in the best that she can. She's in Philadelphia because that's the place that she and Peter talked about. And she figures if she goes there, there's a chance that he could be there too. She doesn't know for sure if he lived or died. And she just always hopes that she'll find him. And this is a story about trying to hide who you are to be safe and learning that that's impossible. There will always be the risk, and you cannot completely hide who you are. And I think that's an important thing to talk about. And I don't know, I thought the way the author went about it was really beautiful, and I thought the way she did this honored Margot, and I don't know. I was happy to have Margot finally get a happy story. Like, Margot is so overlooked. Margot also kept a diary. Margot is just sort of always in the background of Anne's story. So I liked the idea of giving her her own story, giving her a happy ending, because gosh, they need it. Like, I also want Anne to have a happy ending, and I want Peter to have a happy ending, and like, I don't know. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I thought it was really well done. I thought the author did a great job of capturing Margot's voice, and I don't know, I loved this. Number 4 is For Lamb. This is by Lisa Klein Ransom. This is a YA story that came out like way at the beginning of the year, and I loved this. This is a story about lynching. It's set in 1940s Jackson, Mississippi, and we're following this family. And we're getting a bunch of different perspectives. So we're following several different characters. And the story centers on Lamb, who, against her will, kind of, has befriended a white girl. And she knows she should not do this. This white girl won't let up, though. She really wants to be friends and wants to talk to her. And she knows the danger that puts her in. And so she's trying really hard not to let it happen, but also her curiosity gets the better of her. And so obviously it does put her in danger, and it leads directly to a lynching. This is a book honoring all the women who were lynched, who didn't get a story told. And it's called For Lamb because the author found that there was a woman named Lamb who was lynched, and she couldn't find too much more about her, so she dedicated the book to her. And it's sad, it's tragic, but it does have a hopeful ending, and I thought this was very well done. And I don't see enough people talking about it, so I just want to keep throwing this book at people. Number 3 is 101 Horror Books to Read Before You're Murdered by Sadie Hartman. I have to include this at the top of my list because I swear this book has kind of upended my entire reading year. It came out in August, and I started it almost immediately upon receiving it, and just started making all these like TBRs and reading plans, and I have to read all the things. And so I've done like 3 videos reading Sadie Hartman's recommendations from this book, and I'll probably continue doing that because I don't know if anybody else cares, but I'm enjoying that a lot. So I'm probably going to do some more of those videos going into 2024. Probably not one a month, but maybe I'll do a few throughout the year. And I don't know, I thoroughly enjoy books like this. I love book lists. I love people recommending books to me. I love reading people's reviews, and Sadie does a really good job reviewing books in a way that she doesn't spoil anything. Nothing gets given away. She writes about books in a way that makes me want to pick everything up. Even the things in here that I've already read and didn't love, I still like, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I should reread that. Or maybe like that's an author I should give a second chance to. So yeah, this is divided up in categories, so like human monsters, cosmic horror, ghosts, haunted houses, supernatural. So there's a whole bunch of different categories, several books per category. There's also author profile, so like an author profile where she tells you a little biography about them, gives some recommendations of their work that you might want to read, and the author then, the author being profiled gives some recommendations too. So this is just really good. There's like essays included, and I loved this. I want to read everything she recommends in this book. Okay, my number 1 and my number 2 are basically tied because I just could not decide. So I've arbitrarily given them numbers, but honestly, both of them are my favorite. So number 2 is Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune, another book club selection, and this book is about death and the afterlife and like how to really live your life. And I loved it so much. This book made me sob. Like I did not expect it. I would be laughing and then turn the page and just complete sobbing. This book is beautiful. This is a story about a character who lived a very, like, kind of boring life, and when he dies, he gets stuck in this place, and he doesn't know why he's there. He doesn't know how to get out. He doesn't know what he's supposed to do, but he ends up, like, finding this new family to fall in love with, and the people who are also in this, like, coffee shop. And, gosh, this book is so freaking good. T.J. Klune, man, he writes stories that just like you want to crawl inside of, basically, and just live there with these characters. Every one of the characters is lovable. I don't even know how to describe this. It's so good. I need to read everything this man has ever written. Forever. Like, his stories are just so good. And then my number 1 book, I think you can probably guess. I'll give you a second. See if you know what it is. It's Thistle Foot by Jenna Rose Nethercott. I think I've recommended this book to just about everybody who's asked me for, like, what book do I recommend to read next year? This one. This is a story about siblings who inherit a house on chicken legs. And that house has a backstory. And there's also a man who is after it. And he also wants the house. And the siblings have created like a puppet theater. Their parents ran a puppet theater. And so they've sort of inherited that. They also decide to run a puppet theater inside this house and kind of take it on the road. That doesn't really sound like a lot going into it. Like, I'm not doing my best here to explain why you should read this, but first of all, the audiobook. This is a great one to listen to on audio. The author is a poet, so the writing is just beautifully crafted, and that really comes across in the audio, but also the house gets its own perspectives throughout the story. So you're getting like the perspectives of the brother and sister. You're getting a perspective from the man who's after the house, but you're also getting a perspective of the house. And over the course of the story about the house is unfolding, and you're learning why it exists, why they have it, what happened there. And this is a story about bearing witness. And let me tell you, I sobbed. Like, I cried a lot this year. I feel like I read a lot of emotionally heavy books, and this is definitely one of them. I mean, the house, the story of what happened there, kind of broke me a little, but this is great. I loved it. I want everyone to read it. I just want everyone to pick this book up, so I hope that you do going into 2024. So those are my favorite books I read in 2023. It was a really good reading year. I read a lot of really great stuff. Like, it was hard to narrow this down to these 18 titles, but yeah, this was the cream of the crop, the best of the best. And yeah, I hope that I have another amazing reading year next year, because this is maybe one of my best reading years I've had in a while. And like, I'm so hopeful about my reading year going into 2024 based on what I've picked up. Like, I feel like I'm in my 40s. You would think I'd be able to handle this by now, but I think I'm finally figuring out what I specifically love so that I can pick up things that I know I'm gonna love rather than just picking up everything because somebody said it was good. Let me know down below in the comments, what was your favorite book of 2023? I'd love to know. Maybe I'll add it to my TBR going into 2024. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys in my next one. Happy reading. Bye.